OU. I'm excited that everybody is here, and we have other students on the call as well who are going to be answering all of your questions tonight. So yeah, I'm kind of the facilitator for this. I made these slides that I'm about to put on the screen here. Hopefully it works okay. And also, I hope you guys don't mind me having wait, that's actually not as many tabs as I normally have open. Normally I have about like 1,000 tabs open, so that's pretty good for me to only have like, what is that, like 8 or something. All right, let's go ahead and get this slideshow going. Can you guys see that okay? Is that sharing? Looking good? All
Looks
right.
good.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, this whole session is kind of meant to be a general Q&A session for all of our students here who are interested in coming to medical school. We have lots of med students on the call who can answer any and all of your questions. It can be about anything. It can be about life in med school, life living in Oklahoma City, what the curriculum is like, what we did to prepare ourselves as applicants. It can really be whatever you want. I will say that this session is kind of more like general topics. It can be anything, but we have a more specific deep dive session in the spring that we do, and that is typically only talking about the process of applying to medical school. So all about AMCAS, all about sort of like resume building, things you can do. So be on the lookout for that, obviously in the spring. We did it around April last year, but maybe like March, April of this year as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and have all of our med student panelists go ahead and unmute and do quick introductions. I think, I guess I'll go first. I haven't done a full one yet. Let's do, I guess, name, undergrad, maybe what specialty you're curious about. It's okay if you don't have one. And we can kind of go from there, I guess. So yeah, I'm Eric. I went to the University of Tulsa, and I'm actually applying for anesthesiology right now. And then whoever wants to take it away next.
Hi, I'm Joanne. I'm an MS4. I went to University of Central Oklahoma and graduated with a studio art degree. And I'm going to be applying pediatrics. Well, I did apply. So did I miss anything?
Nope, you got it.
Okay, great.
Hi, my name is Lauren Oliver. I am an MS4 at OU. I did my undergrad at Oklahoma State University and am currently in the process of applying for OBGYN.
Hi, my name is Pisa Poco. I did my undergrad at Duke University. I'm currently at MS1 and I'm interested in pediatrics, psych, and looking into anesthesiology.
Hello, everyone. Hey, my name is Ishan, but I go by Ish. I'm an MS1. Not sure what I'm interested in right now. I'm thinking internal medicine or ophthalmology, but we'll see.
Hey, I'm Tyler. I'm an MS2. I went to the University of Louisiana, and I'm interested in emergency medicine, maybe. We'll see.
Hey guys, I'm Zach, and I am interested in pediatrics, and I'm in MS2, and then I went to Oklahoma Baptist University.
Hey guys, my name is John. I'm a MS2. I went to University of Oklahoma. Interested in maybe ophthalmology, maybe dermatology. Not sure.
All right. Is that everybody? I think Sarah Marie might have just joined. Sarah Marie, if you're still logging on, we're doing quick intros for everybody on the panel. If you need a minute to kind of like get on the call and everything, please take it. But we're doing like name, undergrad, maybe like intended specialty.
Okay, cool. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Marie Azun, pronounced she, her. I am currently at the Tulsa campus. My family's from Edmond. I went to undergrad at OU. I graduated this May. And my intended specialty is family medicine. I think that was all of it.
Yep, you got it. All right. Well, thanks so much to everybody for being here. I'm really happy to see that we had such a good panel here. Like you can see, there's lots of people from different schools, and then we have Sarah Marie at the Tulsa campus. We have a good spectrum of specialties covered here. So I think we'll really be able to answer pretty much any question that anybody has. So I think really quickly before we jump into questions, I wanted to just very, very briefly talk about the process of applying to medical school in general. Like I said, we take a deep dive into this during our spring version of this session, but just a quick overview. So basically, it starts typically like if you're in college right now, it typically like kind of like the big stuff happens like your junior year. So you would take the MCAT typically your second semester of junior year, which is right about here. You have some leeway. You can take it a little bit later, but the ideal time to submit that first initial AMCAS application is right when it opens up in June. Most med schools do their admissions on a rolling basis, so you kind of want to get it in as soon as possible. Not long after that, some schools will send out secondary applications. So not only do you have to like have your personal statement and like your transcript and all of your stuff ready with your primary applications, but then almost immediately that you need to turn around and start doing like secondary applications and essays on top of that. So that can be kind of a lot. And then you interview, and interviews are pretty much your first semester during senior year. And then after that, you start to find out if you got in. So I put this little asterisk here as well, because like I said, if you're in college, everything prior to your junior year is going to be kind of like resume building, but not really resume building. It's like doing things that are going to expand your clinical exposure. So shadowing, volunteering, working, you can work for pay in a clinical setting or in a non-clinical setting, research. I hope I'm not missing anything. Any extracurricular, any activity that you are truly passionate about that you can put on your application and speak volumes to, that's going to go a long way on your application and in your interview. So we'll probably talk a little bit more about that whole like kind of resume building aspect, but this is the general timeline here. And I think we'll probably send these slides out later on as well. So I'm going to move on, but don't worry if some of this doesn't make sense. We'll get to all of it. All right, so I think without further ado, let's open it up to questions. So if any students here have any particular questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Feel free to unmute and ask. If not, I've got some questions, then I can kind of lead a discussion with all of our panelists. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Hi, my name is Samana. Is it okay to take a gap in between, like a year break after undergrad graduation to apply to medical school like next year?
I can answer that actually. Yeah, gap years are totally normal. In fact, I actually took 2.5 gap years to work in research and get some clinical experience. So I would say like if you're feeling pressure to get everything done in your really 3 years of undergrad, like it's okay to take a step back and take your time to get everything done.
Thank you.
I would echo that. I also took a 1.5 years, and I worked as a scribe for a little bit and did research for a little bit. And I really feel like that time was actually invaluable for me to figure out exactly what it is I wanted to do in medicine, meaning what role would that look like? Would that be a mid-level practitioner, like a nurse practitioner or PA, or would that be a physician? And that time allowed me to figure that out. And then it also allowed me to explore some of my research interests. And it was probably one of the only times in the past 8 years that I had had a job and a salary, and I got to experience what that was like as well. So I think that a gap year can be actually very helpful if it's for you.
Yeah, definitely just to echo kind of what's already been said. I think gap years are honestly becoming a little bit more common amongst applicants. And there's lots of reasons for that. Everyone's situation is different, but me personally, I really think that if you take a gap year and you spend that time working or doing research or doing anything that gives you more exposure to medicine or just to give you good life experience. I mean, that's something that admissions committees are really looking for. You know, if you feel like you're not ready when you apply to medical school, that's okay. Or when you graduate from college, that's okay. There's so many people who take some extra time, really make sure their application is solid, and then they apply and they get in and make fantastic doctors. So if you're considering that at all, then that's okay. And you know, you can obviously you know, reach out to any of us, especially people like on the panel who have taken gap years, and can maybe talk more about you know, things that you can be doing. So yeah.
Hi there. Can you hear me well?
Yep, sure can.
Yes. All right. Well, I'm actually from Texas. I'll be considered as out-of-state student. Um, I just don't know how to approach the application. If you have like any recommendation, I think the only strong ties I have with Oklahoma is our family best friend. Actually, my best friend live in Oklahoma City, but that's about it. I'm not quite sure how to approach the application. You know, like getting everything prepared and stuff for the next application cycle. Thank you.
I was out of state student, so I guess I could offer some input. It's a little different because I went to OU for undergrad, so that was kind of my tie-in. Um, but yeah, getting in as an out-of-state student, really, like you said, you seem to already know it, right? They want to see what your tie is to Oklahoma, and the medical school. So for me, that was people I had met that were going there. That was I visited, right? That's always something you can do and be like, I checked it out. Maybe see if you could shadow someone, right, associated with OU medicine. Maybe you have a person you've already shadowed or a mentor who is affiliated with the medical school. But at the end of the day, it's not, you know, we accept out of state students every year, right? So everyone has their own tie, their own connection to the medical school. But if you can just demonstrate that and find a way to build on that, maybe, right, that'll make you a really strong applicant. So just my 2 cents.
I would just want to add too. So I am from Oklahoma, but I did get into a school out of state, and I would say just kind of think, so medical schools want to invest in you, so they want people that will eventually teach their like practice in their patient population essentially. So I would like think of why you would want to say go to OU, like what makes our patient population like special, like what experiences can you get in Oklahoma here that you can't get elsewhere. So I would kind of think of those things too. I know a big thing that I like talked about when I interviewed here was just like how Oklahoma is a work of progress. Like we have a lot, we're last in a lot of things, but it makes us like very easy to be a future provider here and see so many things that you wouldn't see elsewhere. So I would kind of like tailor your application that way too. Like think of the patient population that you'd be serving here.
I'm from Oklahoma, so I didn't have to kind of answer the question, but I believe on the secondary application it asks about your existing ties to Oklahoma and like why Oklahoma. And I don't think it's a bad thing to mention that, you know, your friend is here in Oklahoma City and that you already have an existing support system, because I think admissions committees recognize that medical school is a pretty difficult experience, and having existing support systems, especially in a new place, is something that they'd like. But as you know, the other panelists have said, you know, connecting to OU and like knowing the patient population, shadowing physicians here at OU HSC would build like a really strong narrative on why specifically OU HSC and why Oklahoma.
And actually, one thing that I wanted to jump in and say, Mimi, I don't know if you were planning on taking a gap year, and this might be more relevant to anyone else that's out of state and was planning on taking a gap year. But if you live in Oklahoma and you've been employed in Oklahoma for 1 year, you will be considered an in-state student. So that's just a good thing to keep in mind for anyone thinking about applying to OU when you're out of state.
All right. We do have one question in the chat as well. Kayla asks, what types of jobs can you get in a hospital or in healthcare in general during undergrad?
I got some input on this because I took a gap year, not by choice. So I was a reapplicant. So I was kind of scrambling to find a healthcare related job. And you kind of have options in terms of, right, like the requirements. Some are going to be a little more stringent. Going from one of the, I'm not going to say easy because the job itself wasn't easy, but the requirements are low, would be like a certified or be a nurse assistant, right? You can become a CNA. There's some courses online that you can take. But a lot of hospitals are honestly like, you're going to learn it on the job. So you can just apply. That's what I did in Tulsa. I was a nurse assistant there. And then another thing that a lot of classmates of mine have done, and people I know have done, is be an EMT. That definitely sounded a little more exciting at the time, but it does take a longer investment because you have to do, it's like a BLS card plus there's different academies basically that offer the certification, but it's some combination of like online classes, in-person skills, and then eventually you go basically shadow an EMT for a certain amount of hours. And then you get your registration, your provider number, all that stuff. So those are just two options. I know they're really popular, but there's really like a depth and breadth of things to do, like anything healthcare adjacent. So research, clinical research, and then bench work, and then yeah, I'm sorry, that's all I can think of right now. But like ER tech, that's another one. Like there's so many different kind of options, and a quick way to start is just look at a hospital system close to you, right? The closest one, and just go on their careers page. And typically they're going to have tons of openings, and maybe for jobs I don't even know that exist. So that's kind of where I started with that search.
Some other things I would add on to that is that it also depends on where you live. So when I was at OSU, we were considered a little bit more rural, and so there was a little bit more leniency as far as like students coming in. And so we had quite a few students who would go to the clinics, and the clinics would train them themselves because rural medicine is something that's understaffed in general, and we needed all hands on deck for that. Other options to consider might be some of the free or underserved clinics around you. Some do not take students, but a lot will, and they'll teach you some of the things you need to know there. And that's a completely voluntary basis. So you can go as little or as much as you want. And then the other recommendation, which is very popular, is medical scribe. And I think that I really enjoyed my experience doing this just because I got to work with a variety of professionals. I was in the emergency room, so I was exposed to all sorts of medicine, and I could tease out what I liked and what I didn't. And then it gave me a little bit more exposure to the documentation side of medicine too, which is something in medicine that maybe isn't the most glamorous part of the job, but it's an important part to know. And so I thought I got quite a bit of training in that as well.
To piggyback off that, I also did scribing, and I'm noticing in second year you have to start writing notes, and you're given like a time limit. And everyone who did scribing before med school, we all like finish with 5 minutes left, and a lot of people will struggle and be like, "Oh, there's not enough time." So another +1 for scribing.
Hi, I actually have a question. My name is Samantha Ruiz, and I'm an undergrad at Oklahoma State right now, actually. So my question is anyone here involved with research, and what was the process like for you?
Yeah, so there are a ton of different research opportunities on campus, and it kind of depends on what you like. So during undergrad, I did bench work. And then once I graduated from undergrad, I worked at Oklahoma Medical Research Foundation, where I did more bench work. And I really liked that, but I knew coming into medical school, there were certain aspects of medicine I was passionate about. And so I actually found research mentors through our family medicine department. A lot of departments have like a summer research program your first year that you can get involved with. And so that's what I did. And I have been working with a group for 3 years on an access to care project,
So that's one way you can get involved, is some of the summer research experiences. The other way that really OU has been developing recently is that each interest group on campus has a designated research chair. And so if you are interested in, say, urology research, you would reach out to the urology group. They would have a research chair with a list of mentors who are looking for students on their project, and then go from there. And then lastly, you can always just blind email somebody. If you look at their page on OU's website and like their research, you can email them and ask them if they have opportunities for you to get involved. But I will say there's a wide variety on campus, but it's just something that you have to have a little bit of introspection and know what you want in a project and kind of seek out those opportunities.
I would definitely recommend doing a summer undergraduate research experience at OUHSC. We have a few programs. I did the NARCH program, the Native American Research Center. What was the H for? Health. Yeah. This is my cat, sorry. And it was amazing. I felt like it was also great to be able to say, wow, I've been on this campus and I can see myself here and I feel comfortable here after spending the summer here. It's also a great way to make money. They pay you, which is really awesome. So I would definitely recommend that.
I would chime in just as a, oh, sorry, was someone speaking?
No, go for it.
Okay, I was just chiming. I'm a first year, so a lot of my classmates are actually already in research. So we have something here in Tulsa called ORDSA. So it's called the Office of Research Development and Scholarly Activity. And so each class has an ORDSA chair, and that ORDSA chair, like we got lucky in our ORDSA chair, Blake is like, he has like so many publications already as like a first year med student, but his role and the office's role is basically to connect us with research. So like, I feel like a third of my class is already doing research, which is crazy. But Tulsa also has like a website where, and I'll just put it in the chat, like, you know, when y'all get here, you can check it out. But basically faculty post projects on that website to look at. And they also post like what the hours look like every week and kind of like what's expected, kind of like how Lauren was saying, just introspection, like how much time you can contribute. So you can see that as well. And then we also have access to OKC's research projects. I think OKC, you guys have a like place to like a comprehensive list of research projects going on too for students. So it's like super easy. Once you get into medical school, it's much easier than undergrad. You have to do like a lot less cold calling because it's like when you're a med student, it's like people are happy to have you on their project. So yeah.
So I'm on the research committee for the College of Medicine. And in like the last couple of years, we've actually been developing ways to get in touch with doctors and people who are doing research. So we actually have doctors from almost every department that are paid to have students under them. So OU's been really good about fostering student research more so. And research isn't what you think it is always. Sometimes it's just reading papers and writing case reports and things like that. And it's not actually being in the hospital and doing stuff like that. It's really easy to get into. We have a whole system set up now to where if you just fill out a form, like what you might be interested in, Dr. Wright, who is awesome, like sits down, has a meeting with you, and he gets you in somewhere. It's very simple, very easy.
Thank y'all so much. That was a ton of amazing information. Thank you.
All right.
Mimi.
Sorry, go ahead.
I saw there's another question from Mimi, and she asked, or she, I'm not sure. What is the day-to-day like as an OU medical student? How was your transition from undergrad classes to med school classes? So I don't have any experience on MS3 and MS4 yet, but I will say that every year is kind of different. Of course, the first two are preclinical, the second two are clinical. And what that means is the first two, you still have lectures, tests, quizzes, you know, kind of like undergrad was, just a little more intense in terms of schedule. And then the last 2 years are clinical years. And so for those, you're actually in the hospital rotating through a clerkship, which is basically you're part of the hospital team, right? You're the medical student you can rotate through anesthesia, internal medicine, you know, there's flexibility in what you end up doing, what you end up choosing. But yeah, so day to day, it's going to be different for everyone. And especially even within the same class, some people treat med school like a job, right? They only do it from 8 to 5 and then they're done. Some people don't treat it like a job and they like to sleep in and they like to catch up on lecture and then, maybe study until 2 a.m. and that works for them, right? There's a lot of flexibility in how you approach it. Of course, there's mandatory things, right? But they're spread out pretty evenly and they're usually on the same day. So it's like Wednesday evenings, usually busy, Friday evenings, usually busy, right? So you can kind of plan pretty well around that. But yeah, it's flexible. It's what you make it, and the amount of time you put into it is going to be different for every person. So
I would say just on top of that so it's different for everyone for sure, but making sure that you prioritize good habits now that you keep going through medical school. So medical school can be very difficult, and just making sure that it's very flexible. So the nice thing about it being very flexible is that you can make it what you want it to be. So for example, I try to get to school as early as possible, and then I study for a certain period of time, and then I make sure I do my hobbies I was already doing, because mental health is a huge part of being a very healthy medical student, if that makes sense.
I'm going to be 100% honest. To Mimi, your second question, my transition from undergrad to med school was very hard. I mean, you guys are all like super like high achieving students, I'm sure. But med school is so different, and I knew it was going to be hard, but it's super hard. So at OU Med, if you don't know, and Peace and Ish can speak on this too, I'm sure, because we're all first years, but your first 8 or 9 weeks, you take anatomy. And so that class is like, you learn about the entire human body in 9 weeks. So you can kind of think about like just knowing that how like much you have to study. And so for me, I honestly studied like all day. Like I would wake up 6 a.m. and then study from like 8 to like literally 12 hours a day. I do have a classmate though who is I have a lot of classmates who are married. So one of my classmates, he has to like cook dinner by like 6. So he can't afford to do that. And then some people like don't have any responsibilities and they can just, take like more days off or stuff like that. So it just really depends on what your responsibilities are. But I will say like personally, we have a lot of like non-mandatory lecture from like 8 to 12. And so, but even during that time I'm studying. So yeah, that's kind of what it looks like for me in our first year. So yeah.
So I think as an MS4, and maybe like some of the other like MS4s can weigh in as well, I think figuring out how to be as efficient as possible when you're studying and to figure out the techniques within your first and second year that are optimal for your learning style. And I mean, you can even start now that you're an undergrad, because you do kind of want to avoid the situation of, I've been studying for 15 straight hours and now I don't even really remember how I started and I'm so tired. And also your expectations will start shifting. It does start to feel more normal. Like you'll talk to people who are not in your career and it'll seem crazy. I'm on a rotation right now. And I was like talking the other day with somebody in a grocery checkout, and I'm like, I'm only working 40 hours a week right now. It's so crazy. I have so much time. I can like do anything I want. And they're like full time, like you're working full time. And I'm like, yeah, it's like half as much time as I'm used to. It's so crazy. And you'll get used to that. So I wouldn't be super intimidated by that. If other people want to weigh in.
I just wanted to add that something that surprised me was like, not only do we have like our main block of anatomy or foundations of medicine, which we're in right now as first years, but we also have 3 other classes as well. So like just balancing it all has definitely been an adjustment, but I will say that like, as daunting as it is in the beginning, like your confidence will grow as far as like how much you can handle and how much just your capacity to do things in planned time. So yeah.
Yeah, I would also say like you learn to become more efficient and absorb information faster and you like learn to recognize diminishing returns and when you need to stop studying. Like maintaining your mental health is really important. And when you first start off, you start off in anatomy, and it's a really great way to lose yourself in the sheer content that is offered. But you learn to adapt to it. So it becomes overwhelming initially, but within the first week or two, maybe even 3 weeks, you adapt, and there's plenty of resources, and like your professors are there to support you. There's whole faculty that are there to kind of guide you through it. And if you're ever like feeling challenged, overwhelmed, there's someone there to listen to you and talk to you, whether it's your peers, whether it's faculty, someone's always there in your corner, supporting you. So even if it's a hard transition, you're not alone in that experience.
Great answers all around, everybody. It certainly can be a difficult transition, but I think a lot of the themes here are that you learn and you get better, and it all works out. So our next question is, what do scholarships look like for students wanting to get into medical school? And what kind of things can students do to widen their options and possibilities for scholarships?
So I have a lot of Native American scholarships. If there's any undergrads who are Native American, there are a ton of resources that are available to help you pay for school. And even after school, if you do have loans afterwards, which you wouldn't even necessarily have to, because there are so many resources for Native students. And I know, like, growing up, there was a lot of pressure that, you can't go to school if you're going to take out loans. Like, that's not allowed. So if that is something that's on you and you're Native American, that is something that our community acknowledges and will pay for your school and will compensate you. And if you finish and you have a lot of loans, tribes will work with you and figure it out so you don't have to be burdened like that. But I don't really know very much about other kinds of scholarships.
I think I'm just going to echo some of what Joanne said. I definitely grew up in a household where loans were something that was really feared. And I will say that most everybody I know has student loans in one way, shape, or form. And so a lot of us have loans, but I think OU does something that's really great for us. And you all, if I'm saying this completely wrong, just chime in. But I think with OU, it's a relatively simple scholarship application for us. I think with every incoming student, your application is submitted for scholarships. And then each year we kind of submit something that says, this is what I've done this year. This is why I think it's important. And people will review that and determine scholarships based off of that. I know that there's some other scholarships out if you just Google them. I don't have any great examples of them, but I know some of them are out there. And like Joanne kind of mentioned, a lot of them are for specific groups. So if you identify with some of those groups, I think that's a great opportunity to take advantage of that. Otherwise, there are some like that you could just Google and find.
I will say, so when I applied to Tulsa, or when I got accepted, I was fortunate to receive one of their full ride scholarships. And so I know I'm not the only person in my class. I think there's like 2 people. And so I know I can only speak for Tulsa, but I know they do some full ride scholarships. And then we have a lot of funding from the George Kaiser Foundation. And so it's basically a scholarship where they fund your med school application, and then you have to work like each year they fund you have to work in like an underserved population. And so that might seem like binding, but I actually had a mentor who there's a similar scholarship from the HRSA, like NHSC, the National Health something. It's a similar scholarship that's nationwide, and you basically get a stipend. It's like basically the same thing. Every year they fund you. You have to work in an underserved population or underserved health center. But I actually had a physician mentor who did not do this scholarship, and she wishes she had, because the place she ended up working at was actually an underserved place. So she was like, I could have got the scholarship and got my loans paid off because I was going to work here anyway. And I will say, before I got the scholarship at Tulsa, I wasn't able to take loans in undergrad because I could never fill out FAFSA because my family situation. And so I always was looking at like scholarships all the time. And so I do have some scholarships like in the Oklahoma area, like the Oklahoma Women in Technology, they have a scholarship. The Edmond Women's Club, if anyone's from Edmond, they have a scholarship. And so like, feel free to reach out to me, and Eric, feel free to share my information. But I literally would have like a Excel document of scholarships to apply to. So definitely like it takes some like scrounging around for them, but there's definitely money out there. And when you end up going to whatever institution you end up going to, they have a lot of scholarships. Like Tulsa, for example, they have not only those full ride scholarships, but they have scholarships they award as like a second year, third year, fourth year. So it just continues to build up the more you're in med school. So yeah.
All right. Yeah, those are all great opportunities. I didn't know about like a lot of those. So thank you all so much for sharing those. The next question is talking about shadowing. I think that really over the last couple of years, probably since like us fourth years have applied, there's been, I think, a greater emphasis on shadowing in applications. So especially for MS ones and twos who are a little closer to it, to the application cycle and things. Tamana, hopefully I'm saying that right, is asking just like, I think the question is getting at what is a good number in terms of shadowing hours, or what do you think would be an effective use of that time?
I think I can kind of speak to this, and maybe it kind of ties into the next question as well. I was fortunate to sit in on some of the interviews this year for incoming students. And so something that we really look for in an applicant is that they have enough exposure to the medical field to really know what it's all about. I think sometimes medicine is overly glamorized in TV shows, and real world medicine has a lot of challenges. And so if you're able to show that you have been involved with the healthcare field and you kind of know what it takes to be a physician, be in medicine, and know some of the challenges that your patients face, I think you're going to be good to go. I don't know if there's a great quote unquote like number to put on that. I would say it's something that we're just looking for, that for consistent experience with the medical field, and that you demonstrate that passion to work with patients. So I know that that's not a great like quantity answer, but it's just something that we've looked at, and I think it might help here.
I have a question as well.
Yeah, go for it.
My name is Kobe. I attend the University of Oklahoma, and I have two questions for y'all. My first question is, what were the best MCAT resources that you all used? And my second question is there a way we could prepare for these medical courses? Like, should we take an anatomy in undergrad, or should we just like work on our efficiency and study habits?
I think I can speak. Oh, you got it?
You can go ahead.
Okay. I think I can speak to the second one for sure. So when I was a freshman in college, was able to take an anatomy course, and then I was able to TA for that anatomy course. And I was really excited because I thought it would be super helpful. If you aren't able to do something like that, it's not the end of the world. You're not going to be at a higher advantage or even less at advantage if you don't take it, because they are so helpful in that whenever you get to anatomy, you're going to learn from the bottom up, no matter where you're at. And it's going to be different from undergrad. So if you do take anatomy, and if you have the opportunity to do so, or other classes that you think will be in medical school and will be helpful, it can be very helpful, and definitely may help you in the long run. I know that it's helped me a little bit, but if you're not able to do that, I wouldn't stress too much about that.
I can speak a little bit about preparing for the MCAT. I was a free MCAT tutor. I utilized a lot of UWorld. It's a great question bank, as well as the AAMC bundle package, which provides all the AAMC practice tests. They have like question banks as well. When it comes to the material and like the best way to study for the MCAT, it kind of depends on how you want to structure your study schedule, but the AAMC material is going to be the best example of the actual MCAT. They have great practice tests. I believe like 2 of my practice tests were the exact same score that I actually scored on the MCAT. And UWorld questions are really, really great. There are third-party testings like Blueprint or Princeton. All of those cost extra money along with UWorld and the bundle packages. I think they're worth it if you have the time, but they're really challenging and show you the most difficult questions. But I think the biggest thing you could do in terms of studying for the MCAT is giving yourself enough time to meaningfully engage with the material, because there's just such a large amount of material you have to kind of go through and figure out what you feel comfortable with and what you don't with. And it's a really long test. It's 8 hours. So taking practice tests and giving yourself that time, those are just some points that I'd really emphasize in studying for the MCAT. It's like more of a marathon than anything else.
Yeah, just to echo Ish, I also loved UWorld. I think it's like one of the best, for me, it was one of the best third-party resources, meaning it wasn't like AMC affiliated. And then I loved Anki as well. I still use Anki. And I think it actually helped me like in med school, kind of going back to that second question. I use Anki now in med school, and we have a lot of like pre-made decks from like other years. So if you use it during the MCAT, you kind of can like not have a leg up, but you kind of are familiar with it enough when you get to med school, if you do end up using it.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
And then something that I would like, I have some like extra bonus slides, by the way, so let me just skip ahead real quick. So I have, these are from our spring session, so we won't go too in depth about it, but I just wanted to share a couple quick things about the MCAT since we're kind of on the topic anyway. Lots of ways to prep. You heard lots of good resources here. But just to give you a sense very quickly about OU's numbers in terms of MCAT and GPA and all of those things that we used during the admissions process. So these numbers are, I got this from the OU website. They're probably like 1 or 2, maybe 3 years old at this point, but it stays fairly consistent throughout each year. But our average MCAT score is a 508. And in case anybody doesn't know, it's scored toward like, what is it, 528 is the highest, 472, and then like a 500 is kind of like right there in the middle. So a 508 is a good score. It's not a ridiculous score though. It's not like if you're applying to Stanford and they're expecting like a 520 or something like that. We have so many people who score higher than 508, who score lower than 508, and that's okay. My whole point with this is just to give you an idea of maybe a good target for OU, and then know that if you don't hit that number, that's okay. There's plenty of other things that the admissions committee looks at when they're looking at your application, because they want to know who you are as an entire person. Your experiences matter. Your personal essay matters. Your recommendation letters all matter. So this is just kind of give you a sense. And then, yeah, you can see a 508 on this kind of table here shows you that's about a 70th percentile. So just to give you an overall sense of that. And then go back to my question slide. There we go. All right. So the next question that I saw in the chat that I'm really curious to hear everyone's responses to are, when would you know if you have enough to be a competitive applicant?
I didn't know at all. I when I applied for my first year, it was kind of like a shoot your shot kind of thing. I was not really anticipating to graduate that year. So when I got in to my first school, I was like, uh-oh. So I had to rush to finish graduating. I am somebody who doesn't really feel comfortable with assessing how complete or ready I am for things. I think it can be difficult when you're kind of a perfectionist to be like, okay, this is enough. I think that it's maybe you shouldn't entirely expect that there will be a moment where you'll say, oh, I'm totally ready. Oh, this is a great application. I think that can be difficult for some people. I don't know if y'all felt differently about it though.
When I went to my mom and was like, oh my gosh, I need to do more. And truly, 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 I want you to know that if you find something that you're passionate about and you work towards that and it's geared towards medicine and medical school, I think you're going to be okay. I think something great to do is kind of look at people's NCAT scores of the schools that you're looking at. I think it would be good if you have like a good research mentor, plugging Rev Up program right here. They can also kind of look at your application and maybe share their experiences with you, so you can look at what our applications look like and kind of compare and see what areas you are strong in or maybe need to be developed, and go about it that way. But I think at the end of the day, something that you really need to tell yourself is the worst that a program can say is no. And there's always reapplicant workshops and coming back to the application process the next year. And I will say that some of my most successful medical school classmates and some of the ones that I really go to for advice applied more than once. So I would keep that in mind as well.
I would like to share a resource. It's called MSAR. I forgot what it stands for, but that's what I use to kind of look at. You basically can put in your stats and some other things, and then look at the matriculants or the people who got in and compare it to that. There's also, I never want like income to be a barrier. There's like free types of MSAR that I also used, and I'm forgetting the name. You can just like search it up, but I'll put it in the chat for now. But that I think MSAR is like $30 or something for a year subscription, or 2 years, something like that. But that's just a way you can kind of look at like how people who got accepted and how you kind of compare, as they were kind of saying.
I'll just add on a little bit. I definitely had no idea if I was done or if I was ready, but it was kind of like, oh, I'm here, it's time to do it. But I think at some point you're always going to have something where you're like, oh, I can improve this. Oh, I can improve this. And especially paying attention to, so I think he said a 508 was the average MCAT. If you're below that a little bit, that's okay, it's an average. So if you are there and you're like, okay, well, I just don't want to apply because I'm not ready, maybe apply anyway, because then if you increase your MCAT score next time and you reapply, it shows you have a lot of tenacity, and medical schools really like that. Like they like being able to say, oh, this person's really dedicated to this.
All right. By the way, two things. Number one, I'm collecting all of the links and resources that y'all are putting in the chats, and I'll be sure that, because I know the chat can kind of disappear sometimes. So I will make sure that that is like going out to the students or in these slides. That way they can have that, especially people who might be watching the recording later on. And two, I think this event was really it was scheduled for like an hour. So we're getting close on time to 6:30. If anybody has to leave, please feel free to. We still have a few questions, so maybe we'll like try to power through those, but I don't want anybody to like feel pressure to have to stay. So next question is, I think, a pretty fun one. Mimi asks, how was your interview day? And what was the most memorable moment?
It was honestly a blur, and I don't remember a single thing from it. Like nothing. I remember answering the questions, coming out and being like, and like blacking out while I was answering the questions.
So I love interviews. I'm really excited to start interviewing. I think they're really fun, but I also don't remember anything about it. It'd be kind of like somebody saying, remember that conversation you had 5 years ago? Because I mean, I felt very comfortable. I think OU does a great job making applicants feel comfortable. One of the most comfortable interviews that I had, if I am to remember anything. Yeah, it was nice. It was nice. I liked it.
Yeah, I just remember being super nervous. It was over Zoom last year, and like even though it wasn't in person, like I was just shaking the entire time. But the doctors interviewing me, like everyone has said, they were so nice, so comfortable. I honestly thought I did horrible, I can't lie. But then one of the doctors had told me that like I was the future of medicine, and as soon as I logged off, I started crying because like it just meant a lot. So yeah, it was nerve-wracking, but I don't know. It was also heartwarming. So
Yeah, I'm similar to Peace. I was super nervous. I actually got locked out of my house the day of the OU Med interview because I wanted a matcha and then I forgot my keys. It was a whole thing. But it was on Zoom. We still do interviews on Zoom. And I remember I was so like almost like too nervous than I should have been because I thought the interviewers were going to be robots, but they weren't. And so my interviewers were super nice. I know like even for the Tulsa interview, it was even more like chill. Like I remember I think there were like two questions and then me and one of the interviewers talked about running 5Ks like for literally like 15 minutes because that's like what he does in his free time and now he's like my faculty mentor. So just like remembering that they're people and they'll say people things is something that was really memorable and fun. So yeah.
I think I was one of the last groups to interview in person. And so I definitely remember the day being somewhat of a blur, but I think some of the key highlights that you may or may not be aware of is just like one, go online, look at some of the typical medical school questions and just be prepared for those. And two, OU really likes to look at the AAMC core competencies. And so that's another great thing to look at and reflect on and kind of see where your experiences would match up with theirs. But before medical school, I thought I was going to do PA school. And I will say that throughout my interviews, both with PA school and with medical school, OU's was definitely one of the most friendly and most laid back. So rest easy. It will be a nice process.
Yeah, just to give a very brief kind of overview in terms of OU's interview specifically. It kind of had so you have to interview if you're interested in Tulsa. You have to do your Oklahoma City interview first, I believe, and then you can go do your Tulsa one on top of it. But the Oklahoma City one, its interview is in two halves. So the first half is a lot more structured. They ask questions dealing with those AAMC core competencies. And they're all like they want you to give examples of when you demonstrated some of those qualities. So it's always good to reflect on your own experiences and think of stories that you can tell that show off all the best qualities about you. After that, they ask you to step out, and at that point they'll look at your academics, they'll review your entire application once more, and then step out virtually, breakout rooms, and then you come back for the second half, and that is when it's a lot more conversational, a lot more laid back, and everyone can just talk to you like as a person. I do remember my Tulsa one, like everyone's saying, was really chill, really easygoing. The two interviewers were literally like leaning back in their chairs and like crossing their legs and stuff. And we were just chatting. And the most memorable part for me was when they asked me a question kind of out of the blue, just to see how I would do. They said, if you could have one medical superpower, what would it be? And I just thought that was a really interesting question. I said something dumb, but I don't know. It worked out for me. So let's go back to our question page. And then let's see. I think we have a couple more questions. This one is, why did you choose an MD program over a DO program?
I think this is kind of a tricky question because I think medicine's really trying to address some of the historical discrepancies between MD and DO programs. I will say that you're going to get a good education in both of them. I think for me, I specifically wanted to go where I felt like I was going to get the best education and where I felt like I would fit in the best. And so that just happened to be an MD program for me. I also knew that I am interested in a surgical field. And so I think just based off of what I'm seeing with some of my friends in a DO program, there were a little bit more opportunities to get involved with surgical fields here at OU. But I think that if you find a school and it's the best fit for you, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, the reason I only to MD schools was because that idea of, oh, well, I'm going to get more opportunities or potentially a better education in an MD school, which is I think being addressed more as time goes on, because all of the DO that I've worked with have been super well prepared. Their programs have been amazing. They have a great educational system. There shouldn't be prejudices against DOs, but I know that as an MS4 who's been applying to residencies, that there are some difficulties if you're going in as a DO in certain fields, where MDs might be more prioritized, which is really unfortunate, but I do think that is being addressed. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with the DO school. And I hope that this continues to be addressed.
All right. Any other questions from any of our students, or does anybody on the panel have any other topics that they wanted to talk about? I think we're probably close to wrapping up here. So any final questions or comments?
I think one thing that was told to me before I applied and that has stuck with me, and maybe you all need to hear, is I feel like usually a lot of times you're going to hear horror stories about medical students, but I think it's important for you to hear that, like, for me, I would not have done anything differently. And I don't know if the other medical students on this call would say the same thing. I imagine everybody would, but medical school can be fun. I've met a lot of great people. I get to do a lot of the things I love. And so I'm really enjoying it. So if you see, people worried about medical school or worried about time commitment or anything, just know that it's doable and you might have a great time doing it.
I would just add, like, really research like the med schools you want to go to. I know people are like, oh, like I'll just go anywhere that accepts me, but some med schools do things a lot differently. Like I will just say, curriculum wise, like for example, the school my sister goes to, when you fail an exam there, you actually have to retake it within 2 days. So you spend your whole weekend like studying and stuff like that. So we don't do that at OU Med. Like we don't like remediate tests. We don't have to. But stuff like that, I think really do your research on what med schools you want to go to. Don't just as much as a med school chooses you, you choose them too. Like, yeah. So I would just want to add that.
I guess my last comment would be that your story matters. I think more than anything else, like my writing and my application really carried me through, because I was someone who had lower stats and had to do a post-bac and things like that. So, just make sure that you're having quality experiences that you could like write about in a genuine way in your application, and I think you'll be okay.
Yeah, being genuine and finding the school that really suits you, I think, are both really important things. Maybe the most important things.
All right. Well, I think that that about does it. Yes, a big virtual round of applause for all of our panelists here. Oh, it's not letting me do my normal reaction thing. I'll just clap. I'll just actually do it. Thank you all so much for being here. This is very helpful for everyone on the call. Feel free to head out whenever you guys like. I'm going to do a really quick little blurb about the mentorship portal. So for all of our students on the call, we do have this website through the Otis office. And essentially, if you go on this website right here using this QR code or the link at the bottom of the screen, you can actually find a current OU med student mentor, and you can reach out to them directly with questions. So if our panelists are okay with it, I like to include y'all's emails when we send out all of this stuff to everybody here. You can reach out directly to any of our panelists, or let's say, oh man, I'm really interested in orthopedic surgery, and we didn't have someone who was interested in ortho today. You can go on this portal and find a med student who is applying ortho, and you can ask questions about that. So quick little shameless plug for that. But that's it for now. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you again to all of our panelists. Appreciate everybody.